Hello, I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante. Today on Personally Speaking, I'll be joined by actor Goran Visnjic. Goran is best known for his role as Dr. Luka Kovac in the Emmy award-winning hit television series ER, and he currently stars in the new film Fatima, based on the 1917 Our Lady of Fatima events. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Monsignor Jim Lisante, and actor Goran Visnjic joins me now. Goran stars in the new film called Fatima, a version of The Miracle of Our Lady of Fatima. He is best known for his role as Dr. Luka Kovac in the Emmy award-winning medical drama ER. Goran was recently seen in Amazon's The Boys, Timeless, and This Is Us, as well as on ABC's Red Widow and CBS's Extant. His film credits include Asthma, The Counselor, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Beginners. The Croatian-born actor began his career starring as the lead in Hamlet in the internationally acclaimed Dubrovnik Summer Theater Festival in Croatia, and his performance earned him an Orlando Award, Croatia's equivalent of the Tony Award. In Fatima, Goran plays Arturo, the mayor of Lucia's hometown, who does not believe the three children who report visions of the Virgin Mary. Goran says the message at the heart of the film is quite simple. Quote, "As human beings," he writes, "we have to be good to each other." It's a message that was needed then, and more than 100 years later is so important today in bringing peace into our families, our communities, and our world. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking the actor Goran Visnjic. Goran, welcome to our show, and I want to get it right. Goran Visnjic, am I saying it right?
That's pretty close.
Pretty close. And by the way, our listeners can't see this, but how long is that great mustache growing on you?
I just actually got rid of my full beard, so
Okay.
This is just a leftover. But it was just, I'm in Croatia, it's really hot. I even had the long hair for this job that I was kind of hoping to get. And then one day I woke up and I just said, you know what, I'm done with it. I cut off the beard, cut off the hair. So this is just a leftover.
Now, let me ask you, I'm told that you're now living pretty much full-time in Europe?
Yes.
How could you leave our beautiful USA?
Because I'm traveling so much that I really can't even say I'm living someplace, in one place. I'm in Croatia now, visiting my mom and dad. My kid's been here for 2 months because we were just completing a move from Los Angeles to England. And it all happened during the virus time. So it was really weird. We sent the container to England, and then basically for 5 months, when virus happened, we were like without our things. So kids were going on Zoom school, sitting on cardboard boxes. They were sleeping on the floor for 5 months, because all our stuff were waiting for us in England. It was really kind of.
If I knew you were suffering, I would have had a collection in my church. Let's send clothes to Goran and his wife.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
For our listeners around the country, one of the reasons we're talking to Goran is to talk about this movie, which is called Fatima, obviously about Our Lady's appearance at Fatima. You play Arturo, the mayor of Fatima. Can you tell us something about your character? Are you one of the good guys or one of the not so good guys for the children?
Well, I mean, look, it's very difficult to play good guys, bad guys in this case. If you think about historical situation in Portugal during the First World War, government was really opposing the church. Right. It was a very, very difficult time to be a churchgoer because government was trying to portray believers as people who were against technology, against the improvement.
Right.
So it was a really tough time. There were even some church closures and stuff like that. So when the kids start telling the story, what happened to them and, what they saw and everything, Arturo is trying to get to the bottom of it. Are the kids just playing or not? Even the bishop and the church, they're trying to see, are the kids serious? This really happened or no? And then when people actually start really believing in, and when kids were, experiencing the scene once a month, more and more people start coming there. So Arturo was being pressured from Lisbon by the government that he needs to make everything stop. And he couldn't do it, because people were just coming, and it was a bigger and bigger event every time, So
right.
He was a definitely guy between a rock and a hard place, because his wife was actually telling him, look, man, you need to let it go. What's wrong with this? It's a message of peace and love. Why are you trying even to stop it? And, he was a government guy. He was trying to do, the best what he could. Funny thing is, after the final miracle, the miracle of the sun, Arturo disappears from the public eye. You can't find him in historical records any longer. He stops being a mayor. He obviously seen something. He experienced something on that day, because he was there during the miracle of the sun. And, he just stopped being in politics and everything. He just disappeared. He never said publicly, okay, I'm a Catholic, I'm a believer now. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of obvious in a way, because he really he decided, he wasn't on the right side, probably,
Okay. Goran, you, coming as you do with a Croatian background, what is the predominant faith in Croatia, and how strong is it?
It's Catholic, pretty strong, and yeah.
And you had the experience of living through the war years, did you not?
Yes.
And how did that impact on the country?
Well, wow, that's a part of much bigger conversation. It's like it was a very complicated time, and it was tough. Look, every war is tough, and it wasn't the best part to be living there.
Right.
But what I like to say is now Croatia is really in a good shape, minus the virus, let's say before everything, the tourism was really going great, and it's a really beautiful country with so many natural beauties, so many architectural beauties. For example, like our cathedral in my hometown is a UNESCO's monument, for example, because of it's the only cathedral built only with stone. There is no wood or metal used in building, So it's a very famous building, actually, in the world. Mm-hmm. It's UNESCO's monument. And the country is, it's really pretty.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. My generation would have remembered President Tito and the concept of Yugoslavia. And I guess for those of us who are from another country, we can never understand why when he disappears from the scene, everything seems to fall apart. What did he have that held everything together, or was it forced?
Well, it was kind of semi-forced. You see, I did a movie, Welcome to Sarajevo, more than 20 years ago.
Yes, I remember. Beautiful film, powerful.
And then people would ask me all these questions. And one of my answers was, look, if we're going to really go in that direction, I would need the geopolitical maps of Europe for the last 300 years. Right. But bottom line is, when Christianity split in half, it happened exactly through the middle of Yugoslavia at the time. You get Croatia and Slovenia were Catholic countries. Serbia, Macedonia, and Montenegro, they became Eastern Orthodox. Turks came into the area. They conquered the Bosnia parts of Serbia. So now in Bosnia, you have a Muslim religion because the Turks were there for a couple of hundred years, a couple of centuries. So that area was such a religious turmoil. But during that time, like Croatia and Serbia never went in war. Actually, we helped each other and stuff like that because we were always separate entities, separate nations, separate countries. But when they decided to put all those countries together because they were South Slavic people, that was the only only similarity. But because historically we've been so separated and so different, when you put us all together in the same country, it just couldn't work. Mm-hmm. It was a false assumption, in my opinion, even to start a country like Yugoslavia. I think it was always supposed to be separate like it's now. And you know, if you see Slovenia and Croatia, we're doing really fine, and actually not fine. We're doing really, really good.
Goran, let me ask you, especially in light of the film Fatima, could you tell us a little bit about the experience of what a place like Medjugorje has done to an area like the country you come from? Is there a parallel between Medjugorje and Mary's apparitions there as opposed to Fatima? Have you given that much thought?
Well, there is a parallel. There was even a movie made about Medjugorje. There was a similar situation when the government officials, it was a communist country, and the government officials were basically, you know, trying to tell the children, you know, you need to tell us the truth. You know, this didn't happen. You know, I'm not exactly familiar in the details how far it went and what happened. You know, the difference of Fatima was that when it happened, technology on the planet was much, much lower than when it happened in Medjugorje. When it happened in Medjugorje, you always got television, you got radio, you got newspapers being kind of magazines. You got people were much more connected. It's almost the difference between Medjugorje and today with all the social media. It's like everything is instantly known, as the difference between Medjugorje to Fatima. If you know what I mean, the technological gap between the events. But in Fatima, you had one big difference because there was this big miracle of the sun that was witnessed about apparently 70,000 people. It was even recorded on a camera. Cameras at that time were not really good. And, you know, what you see on that film is kind of like, you know, skeptics are saying, you know, it could have been done, you know, but there were so many. My biggest thing that confirms everything that happened there, because I don't want to talk, oh, do you believe in that or you don't believe? No, the kids' message was so simple and beautiful, and it was message of love and peace. And these little kids, they I don't think they could have come up with something like that on their own to get such a kind of beautiful, pure message out there. For me, that's pretty much the biggest thing to go for it, that it really did happen. You know what I mean?
Goran, when for my viewers and listeners around the country, when is Fatima as a film going to be popularly released? And importantly, how can they find it?
Well, the release is on the 28th. If Instagram users, they can go on Picture House USA or Fatima, the movie, or they can just go online, Google it, and they're going to see exactly there's going to be limited theatrical release. So I'm not sure in which cities, but you can find all online. Okay. And also it's going to be on, I believe, all streamer platforms, you know, from iTunes to the other Prime Video. So from 28th of August, you're going to be able to basically find it. You know, if you just Google it and, you know, but in North America, it's tomorrow. Which theaters exactly, you're going to need to do a bit of a search.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about you for a moment. Your own upbringing, was faith something given to you? Was it something you embraced? Did it come from your parents, from the local parish priest? How did you get to be a man of faith?
Well, when I was born, it was a communist country. It was Yugoslavia. So it was not something that was encouraged a lot. Right. So it was more something that was kind of like in the culture that you kind of grew up with, because it was just like, again, that cathedral in my hometown. You know, when people say, you know, why people used to build these churches in the old times, there is something that kind of just draws you in, that it's like a beauty of the place, of the building, you know. So we've been just, it was just always around you know. And when I was older, I was kind of drawn more to it than when I was a kid, to be honest with you.
For our listeners around the country, Goran is an interesting guy. He has played Hamlet. He's played a star of ER, and now he's starring in this movie, Fatima. I'm intrigued by the parents who formed you. What did they do right in raising you that made you comfortable with the idea of a life in the arts?
They pretty much let me be when I was deciding what am I going to do in life. There was many, many funny stories with me and my mom talking about my future in this business, But I was in an amateur theater when I was a kid, since I was 9 years old. We have a very old tradition of theater in my hometown, and also old tradition of an amateur children's theater. So my mom was thinking, when I was a kid, well, better that he's in theater, working. We worked really hard. We had 2 premieres a year. We did this Midsummer Night's Dream when I was in 5th grade of primary school. I mean, it was adapted version. It wasn't a full-on 100% play, but it was pretty big. I remember working really hard on it in the 5th grade. But so she was kind of thinking, it's better if he's there than if he's on the street, Mm-hmm. And then when I realized in my teen years that this can actually be a profession, they told me, what you do in theater, that's actually the same thing as Paul Newman is doing. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, it's the same job, it's just, you need to do the school, you need to, you can't end up in Hollywood, but, you can work in Zagreb, or you can work, but there's a TV and movies in at that time, Yugoslavia. And I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. But I kind of was thinking about, maybe I'm going to go to that Hollywood, check it out one day. So when I told my mom when I was about 17 that after the high school, I want to become a professional actor and I want to go to Academy of Dramatic Arts in Zagreb, that was the only school at the time in Croatia that you could do. She was like, well, I mean, if you really like it, you should go, of course, but it's a tough life, mm-hmm. Son, they drink a lot, those people. And, she was kind of like giving me this. And I'm like, well, I just want to be an actor. Well, I do respect it. You should try, because it was a free school, but it was a huge audition. It was like 400 or 500 people, mm-hmm. and they would take only 13 people for that school year. Okay. So it was a very difficult school to get in. It wasn't about the money; it was about getting in.
So she was encouraged. She encouraged you, and she did not discourage you, and that's a good thing. Now, for our listeners, Goran Visnjic is also now not just a son; he's a dad. When you have children of your own, how do you encourage them to follow their dreams, but at the same time, how do you implant in them the strength, the values, the faith to sustain them? How are you raising your own kids?
Well, the biggest problem, not the problem. My wife and I talk a lot about, how we do things. Are we doing things okay? We're trying to see some mistakes that we recognize from other people, our parents. There is no proper book on it. You really try as best as you can, and you can always mess up something. It's really difficult because it's so many tiny little things. But what we try, I'm really hoping for my kids that they're going to have a passion towards something, that they're going to have mm-hmm. anything, even if it's going to be a drummer in a rock band. I don't care. As long as he's passionate about being a drummer, because that leads to a life of fulfillment in my eyes. Because if you have a job that you love so much, you're not going to work one day in your life.
Right.
When I work, I can say I work only when I memorize my lines. That's kind of a bit of a dull job. Mm-hmm. But once you're done that, there is no work. It's actually pure enjoyment. You really try to challenge yourself to do different roles every time. And, so we're constantly testing them and say, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And, not everybody knows exactly what they want, but they're still little. And I have to say they're interesting kids, and they're trying really hard, I think. And they've been traveling a lot with us, and they've been seeing a lot. And I hope they're open-minded, and they're gonna, they're going to have happy lives. That's all I can hope for.
That's a great thing for a parent to want. Goran, when you've been, as you have for many years now, the handsome leading man, how well do you handle the concept of aging?
Well, look, it is tricky because you see yourself, playing Hamlet when you were 21, and now, you're 47. And of course, you can't play Hamlet anymore, but you can play age-appropriate roles. For me, I just want to do a good roles. I want to do stuff that it's interesting, something that I can really get myself in. But on the other hand, I'm big believer in exercise, and I know I had some issues with my back 20 more years ago, and every time I don't exercise for more than like 7 to 10 days, my back starts stiffening, and I'm starting having problems with my back. As soon as I go into my 3 times a week regimen of exercise, I'm healthy as. I think our bodies are not made for this kind of sedentary lifestyle. You sit in the car, you walk a little bit, you come to your office or whatever. I think we need to keep moving. So that helps a lot. And then, stuff you eat, how much you drink. I quit drinking years ago, and that was the best thing. Of course, smoking I quit like more than 12, 13 years ago. Those 2 things are going to do a miracle for your appearance. Not drinking alcohol and not smoking cigarettes, eating moderately. You would be surprised that it's gonna keep you younger for a really long time. So you do some things that are normal, and that's what I believe. I like when I see Clint Eastwood, when you see his face being really kind of like, you can see his age.
Right.
It's all good, So let's talk in 10 years.
Yeah. Goran, let me ask you, you said a moment ago that you like to take roles that give meaning, that have meaning. So what then attracted you to this role in Fatima? Why Fatima?
Well, Fatima was when my agent sent me scripts that people are interested in me, or they think this would be something I would love to be fighting for and stuff like that. So this one came with the interest for me to portray this character. Now, I read the script, I really loved it, and I've seen Marco Pontecorvo's movie Parada, which was a very kind of gritty, realistic movie, very down to earth, and it was kind of like a little bit awkward that this guy is going to be directing a period piece of appearance of Virgin Mary in Portugal in 1917. So my curiosity was very tickled to be working with him on a script like this. And the character was a character that on the outside, yes, he was against that. He was trying to, get these kids to tell him they invented everything. But internally, he was struggling a lot. I don't know, could you see that in the movie or not? Because, he has scenes with his wife. You see that him and his wife, they've been together for a long time. They have kids on their own. And she tells him, like, why are you doing this? There's no need for this. And you see he's struggling between his wife, between himself, between the government official. So the more complicated the character is, it's easier for me to play it in a way. You need to put an effort, but it makes it interesting. The more interesting the character is, it's easier for you to do because there is the toughness. It's you can't say a toughness in my work, because the tougher it is, it's kind of easier to do it. It's kind of counterintuitive, but that's what it is.
Goran's our guest. I promise I'm going to wrap it up now, but my last question. Years ago, the first interview I ever did was with the film director Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life and many other great films. But he said he thought the great curse of our age was discouragement, which leads me to my final question for you. In light of the challenging times we're living in, very similar to what was going on during Fatima, are you, Goran, not just as an actor, but as a person, are you hopeful for the human race?
Ooh, that's a tricky one, because it's literally, sometimes I get exasperated with everything that's happening, and sometimes I'm just like, I just can't take this anymore. It's like social media, me as an actor, I have my Instagram account, which I'm taking care of my own. So I kind of feel I need to post a little bit about Fatima, about the show I was doing, the new show coming out. So I'm constantly involved in it. And then you check Twitter, you check news, and it's so much noise. And it's so difficult, even for me, that I can say I'm relatively educated and relatively young, so I'm relatively involved in things, and it's so difficult to see through the clutter. Very, very difficult. And that's what's kind of like, killing me. But at the end of the day, I am hopeful. absolutely. I am hopeful, and I think we are better than this. And I think this movie, I don't want to sound that I'm trying to sell the film. I really honestly believe if you don't worry about was miracle real, was it really happening? The message that these kids were trying to give out there, that's what's important. And that message is beautiful. It's a message that it's message of love. And be better to your brother human, not because he's black or white or whatever, or this religion, that religion. I mean, we're all in the same thing, we're all on the same planet,
Right.
And it's a global village with the internet and airplanes and everything. I mean, this virus connected us so quickly, like it spread like a wildfire, and it's same with information and everything. And now I would just like to see a little bit of goodness to spread that fast,
Right.
Nice.
I think Goran's onto something. With a film like Fatima, the greatness of it, it seems to me, is that the message, even though it's from the early part of the last century, is as relevant today. We still can be discouraged. We can still be in need of that message of love one another, forgive one another, work it out together. The message is very timely, very topical. I'm hoping our listeners will watch the film Fatima. And once again, www.fatimamovie.com. And I want to thank Goran Visnjic for being with us. He's a wonderful actor, and I hope today we got to see not just a wonderful actor, but a thinking, caring, compassionate human being. And I'm so grateful that he made the time to be with us on our show. Goran, thank you so much, and all the best luck with Fatima.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
As we end today's program, I want to thank all of you for being with us. If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can send them to me through my website, which is www.closeencountertv.com. All one word, closeencountertv.com. To listen to our Personally Speaking podcast with some of our most recent shows, please go to YouTube and search under Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante and subscribe. Personally Speaking is also available as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and Spotify. You can also listen to past episodes by going to www.ollmp.org, ollmp.org, and you get not only recent shows, but also Monsignor Jim's weekly homilies. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz, and thank you all so much for being with us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.